Welcome back to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. It is Wednesday, July 27th. We're coming in here very close to the end of July as we continue a very busy week for pro wrestling. Coming off of WWE Raw, which was the first show under Triple H. Your weekly AEW Dark and Dark Elevation shows, NXT 2.0, the ongoing G1 Climax. Tonight there's Fight for the Fallen from AEW Dynamite. There's Impact on Thursday, SmackDown and Rampage on Friday, New Japan's Music City Mayhem on Saturday, SummerSlam on Saturday, and then on Sunday, closing things out, we have Ric Flair's Final Match, a pay-per-view that has an absolutely loaded card and features what is being dubbed Ric Flair's Final Match. We'll see if that sticks, but again, just a very busy week for wrestling fans, a very busy week for us as we cover things, but over the weekend, we had the last ROH pay-per-view with Death Before Dishonor. The second ROH pay-per-view under Tony Khan's reign of the promotion. And myself, Joey, and Ryan watched it together. And I'm here recording this review for the show a few days later. But just wanted to get it out. So this is exclusive to our YouTube channel, so if you're listening on YouTube, please consider leaving a like on the video, comment your thoughts on the overall show. If you have any questions you want to ask us, we'll answer on a future episode. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 200 subscribers, so your subscription is free. It gives you access to our content more easily, and it also helps us grow and expand our viewership, which we would appreciate. For those new here, my name's Pat. I do a lot of the hosting here for the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. I'm covering the entire New Japan G1 Climax currently. I also talk about AEW and sometimes Stardom as well. I know that the 5-Star Grand Prix is getting underway soon, and we'll see if I cover any of that. If anything, I don't think I'll do like a prediction show for it, but if anything, when the tournament wraps up, I might do something for it, but we'll see. Time will tell. Alright, with that being said, it's Wednesday, so, Fight for the Fallen is tonight. I guess I'll go over that at the end of the show before wrapping things up, just because, nothing specifically from this Ring of Honor card totally affects the Fight for the Fallen show besides one match, I think. But we'll just get through get through Death Before Dishonor, I should say, sorry, and then we'll talk about Fight for the Fallen and anything else that needs to be discussed. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast as I take you through Death Before Dishonor and my overall thoughts on the pay-per-view. So, kicking things off, we had the pre-show for the pay-per-view, which had 4 matches on it, and we kicked things off with Colt Cabana versus Anthony Henry. We had a technical start to this with Colt massively over with the crowd in Lowell, Massachusetts. Henry eventually gets control with a series of neck cranks before going after both of Cabana's arms with a submission. Cabana then gets some fight out before getting cut off via a hard knee to the head from Anthony Henry, who gets a headlock locked in then. Colt comes out with a spinning powerbomb and fires up with a series of punches, and then comes down with the bullseye elbow. We have a series of chops from Cabana and the flying apple, followed with a massive clothesline that scores a 2 count. At ringside, while Henry has the ref distracted, JD Drake, his partner, who is playing his manager here, takes out Colt and allows Henry to get a cheap shot against the barricade. A big frog splash from Henry lands for a big near fall back in the ring as the crowd comes to life for Cabana. Henry then comes off the top rope again, and Colt sidesteps with Henry attempting to deadlift Colt, who just deadweights him for a nice little comedy spot and prevents the suplex, as Anthony Henry then gets caught in the Billy Goat's Curse submission hold. JD Drake climbs up onto the apron and gets, and Henry then gets sent into him. Cabana goes up top for a beautiful moonsault, and that's it. Colt Cabana wins. Fun little opener for the pre-show. Colt Cabana seems to be being featured in Ring of Honor now rather than AEW. I think it's a good fit. Colt's always a fan favorite, and he's a strong veteran to add to this Ring of Honor roster as the show, gets more going for it, eventually with TV and more pay-per-views. So I think Colt's a good fit. I feel like he's somebody that, is always going to provide a good match. He's a really solid character worker as well. Provides some nice uniqueness in his offense. I don't know where I see his ceiling at, but I can definitely see him holding titles in Ring of Honor again. Whether it's the TV, I don't really think he'll get the World Championship, but you never know. But TV title, 6-man title, tag title, I feel like all those are within the realm of possibilities. But I thought this was a solid match, and Anthony Henry I thought really impressed here. He tweeted something out, I believe, that kind of indicated that he might have gotten signed. So if that's the case, I would assume JD Drake will also be getting signed properly, and that these two will be joining the Ring of Honor roster. That's all still a mystery as to who is joining Ring of Honor, but I think Anthony Henry and JD Drake would be solid additions to the roster. After this, we had the Shinobi Shadow Squad, Eli Isom and Cheeseburger versus the Trustbrothers, which is a team that debuted on AW Dark, which is led by Ari Daivari, the former Aria Daivari, and is made up of himself, Slim J, and the former NXT 2.0 star Harland, now back as his real name, Parker Boudreaux, though he was not here with them. Yeah, but the Trust Brothers debuted on AEW Dark, and, it seemed like they were going to be, an actual faction here that got a push. And I believe on Rampage last week, they even aired a vignette for Daivari. So it does seem like Tony Khan has plans for this group, which is interesting. So it's established as Ari Daivari and Slim J are making their entrance that Daivari has come into a large sum of money, and he has spent the money, some of his money to buy Slim J's services, and he's now contracted to work with Daivari. Eli Isom gets tagged in after Daivari and Slim J work over Cheeseburger briefly. We have a huge arm drag from Isom before Slim J then tags back in. We have a good tag combo from Eli Isom and Cheeseburger, which drops Slim J on his face as Cheeseburger then locks in the La Escalera submission that he picked up in Mexico. Slim J drops Burger with a complete shot as the Trust Brothers cut Cheeseburger off for a bit before Isom gets the hot tag and brings it to both Slim J and Daivari. We have a spinning side suplex from Isom, which drops Ari as Cheeseburger and Slim J go up top. Double underhook butterfly suplex comes off the top from Slim J, which was this looks super impressive. I've never seen this guy wrestle, but he had some cool moves. He takes Isom down again to set up the frog splash from Daivari, and the Trust Brothers win. This didn't do too much for me, but I do like that, they are establishing some new faces around here, and the Trust Brothers is a new group that seems to be aiming for something in Ring of Honor. We do have the 6-man titles in Ring of Honor, which we'll talk about later, so I'm assuming the team of Daivari, Slim J, and Parker will probably be a factor in there, or Slim J and Parker could be a tag team, or Daivari and Slim J could be a tag team and Parker could be a singles guy. So We'll see how it plays out, but yeah, I do hope Isom and Cheeseburger stick around in Ring of Honor. I would assume at least Cheeseburger will, because he's been used, several times. He was used at Supercard of Honor. He's been used on Dark and Dark Elevation, so I'd assume Cheeseburger will stick around. We cut to the back, and Lexi Nair is backstage with Prince Nana making his return to Ring of Honor, and he announces that he has purchased Tully Blanchard Enterprises thanks to his wealth from Ghana. And Nana announces that he will be accompanying all of Tully Blanchard Enterprises to their matches tonight. And so yeah, so this will be a story that goes out throughout the night. And very interesting. But we go to our next match, which is a trios match with the random team of Blake Christian, Alex Zayne, and Tony Deppen versus Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony, formerly Tully Blanchard Enterprises, as Prince Nana comes out with them, and it's revealed that they are now the rebranded Embassy. And Prince Nana makes his entrance with them. Brian Cage gets his own entrance, and he gets a pretty good reaction from the crowd here, so that's cool to see. This ended up being quite a fun trios match. I thought this was a really solid pre-show match. Alex Zayne takes on the Gates of Agony on his own here at the beginning. He plants Khan with a Super Rana off the back of Toa Leona. Khan flips off Alex, who then rolls to ringside and dodges a clothesline from Brian Cage before getting dropped by Toa Leona back in the ring. The Gates of Agony then take it to Zayne, and Khan tags back in and brings the heat onto Zayne as they cut him off from the rest of his team. Zayne eventually goes up high as Khan climbs up with him, who drops the sauce with a side suplex across the top of the turnbuckle. And then Toa Leona drops him on the apron and then tosses Zayne up to Cage, who suplexes Zayne from the apron back into the ring. It's just an absolute murder on Alex Zayne here. And a really impressive suplex from Brian Cage, who's like standing on the middle rope and just lifts Alex Zayne from the apron back into the ring. Looked really good. A pop-up powerbomb from Cage gets countered with a knee from Alex Zayne, who then eats a wheelbarrow suplex from Brian Cage. Blake Christian tags him for the first time and clears house with the Gates of Agony and plants Brian Cage with a really good-looking DDT as the crowd goes wild for him. Huge Fosbury flop from Christian, but he gets caught by the Gates of Agony, and then Tony Deppen comes flying over the top rope onto all of them. Zayne hits a crazy springboard moonsault from the inside of the ring to the outside. A flying knee from Tony Deppen lands for a 2 count. The Gates of Agony lift up Tony Deppen, who comes up with chops before getting drilled with a pop-up powerbomb from Cage back in the ring, and then a double knee gutbuster from Khan, and then a tag finisher from Brian Cage and Toa Leona. Just like, again, another murder here, this time on Tony Deppen, and the Embassy wins. This was just very fast-paced and fun. I do hope to see Blake Christian, Alex Zayne, and Tony Deppen all back in Ring of Honor. I think they're all very talented. And with what we'll talk about when we get to the main show, I'm very interested to see what happens with Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony as the Embassy. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I thought this was a really solid match and a strong win for the Embassy. That sends us into the main event for the pre-show, which was a women's match with Allysin Kay versus Willow Nightingale here. Very, very big reaction for Willow as she comes out. Easily the biggest aside from Cabana during the pre-show, which I think is awesome to see. We all love Willow. There is a code of honor before the match, before the two women lock up. They transition all over the ring before coming to a stalemate. Willow drops Allysin Kay with a power slam and lands a sliding crossbody for a brief pin attempt off the bat. We have a cartwheel from Willow with an enziguri and a body splash in the corner, and then Willow dances for a pop here. Allysin ends up dropping Willow over the middle rope with a big lariat that lands from AK, and it drops Willow in the ring for a 2 count. A drop toe hold into the STF from Allysin Kay gets locked in the center of the ring briefly before she gets Willow back into the corner, and then follows up trying a shoulder tackle as Willow dodges, and this sends Allysin Kay running shoulder first into the post. Allysin then gets face planted by Willow as both women go for spin kicks, with Allysin Kay landing hers. The Willow comes back with a strong clothesline as both go down for and get a solid reaction from the crowd here. Kay looks for the Kimura lock, but Willow gets out and drops her on her head for a 2 count. The triangle choke gets looked for, but Nightingale stacks her and forces the break as Willow drops her with a DDT. Kay gets Willow with the Dude Buster / Bastard Driver, whatever you want to call it, but it only gets a 2 count. A big kick from Willow lands as she follows up with the pounce for a big reaction. Willow then pulls the straps down, which also gets a big reaction. The crowd's firmly behind Willow at this point, who hits her cannonball in the corner and follows up with a brutal, and I mean brutal looking gut-wrench powerbomb to finish this. Willow Nightingale gets the win, and if she can safely hit this gut-wrench powerbomb every time, that's an amazing finish. It just looked so good. I thought this pre-show, all things considered, was pretty solid. I thought Allysin gave her as Willow Nightingale was a very strong match. I thought the trios tag was super fun. The Trustbrothers versus Shinobi Shadow Squad didn't really do much for me, and then Colt Cabana versus Anthony Henry was a really solid opener. So 3 for 4, I thought, on their match attempts here on the it's not the buy-in, I think it's the 0 hour is what it's called. So I enjoyed it. If you're gonna go back and watch any of this, just skip the Shinobi Shadow Squad versus Trustbusters. But I would say watch the other 3 matches. They're not long, but I would say all of them have reasons to watch them for one thing or another. So, yeah. And that sends us into the main show, which would kick off at 8 o'clock and would feature quite a number of big-time matches. And we'll get into that in a second. Kicking off the main show for Death Before Dishonor is the most controversial match of the entire card. Really the only controversy on this show. And it would be Claudio Castagnoli taking on Jonathan Gresham for the ROH World Championship, as this was dubbed one of the co-main events here, but would be obviously kicking off the event tonight. Bobby Cruz announces the first match, and commentary begins freaking out as it's a fairly shocking reveal that the World Championship would be kicking off the pay-per-view. Huge reaction for Claudio as he comes out here. And as Jonathan Gresham makes his entrance, very, very clear difference in reactions from the crowd in terms of just, loudness, but also in Jonathan Gresham's presentation, as he would come out here in just a t-shirt, no mask, no flag, just coming on out here. And he would have Prince Nana in his corner, but yeah, you could tell something was up, and then his face kind of just told the story of the, not being too pleased. But we would have a fairly short match here, as straight away Claudio would go for the uppercut. Gresham gets out of the way. Giant swing gets put in immediately. Claudio sends Gresham for a ride right off the bat and gets a 2 count. Claudio attempts to lift Gresham, who turns it into an arm drag, and then Gresham comes to life with a few drop kicks to the legs of Castagnoli. Gresham goes out onto the apron, and Claudio gets onto the ropes with a waist lock as he brings him over back into the ring with a suplex. This looked pretty nasty. Claudio gets hung up on the ropes in the corner, and Gresham lands a nicely placed drop kick against the ropes. Gresham comes off the top rope then and gets caught with a backbreaker. Jonathan Gresham then goes back to the knee, grabbing at it and trying to force it to buckle. He takes down Claudio with a diving dropkick and an elbow strike before going into the ankle lock, but Claudio gets to the rope, and then Claudio drops Gresham with the Ricola Bomb, and Claudio Castagnoli wins and becomes the new ROH World Champion, the first World Championship in Claudio Castagnoli's career, for a huge reaction from the crowd. They were very into this. Coming out of the show, we would have the big news here that Jonathan Gresham would request his release from Ring of Honor, and that he got into a screaming match with Tony Khan before the show and apparently cursed him out. So I'm just reading from Post Wrestling, but this is in regards to a report from Fightful Select here that Jonathan Gresham reportedly asked for his release from Ring of Honor / AEW in a heated conversation with Tony Khan before his championship match with Claudio Castagnoli, Death Before Dishonor. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful tweeted the report today, stating that there was a conversation that involved Gresham cussing out Tony Khan. The reporting comes after Gresham deleted his Twitter account as well as the account of Terminus, his promotion. And we also would find out that apparently he will be stepping away from wrestling and taking an extended break. So, yeah, we'll see what goes on with this. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it, but apparently the issues were over lack of communication, as well as the way that his character was being treated, and he wanted more of creative control for himself as well as for the ROH brand. And I guess Tony Khan did not agree with this, which led to the issues there. So we'll see what happens with Gresham moving forward. I do not expect to see him back in Ring of Honor. But I don't know where he would go. I guess my guess would be Impact, most likely, whenever he returns to wrestling. But we'll see. Again, it is also interesting that I guess Terminus is done, or at least for the foreseeable future, Terminus is done. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. But as far as the match goes, it was solid. It was just, shorter than I think anyone expected. But Claudio winning did feel like the right call in terms of trying to establish Ring of Honor as like a must-watch show, and just putting, the world title on one of your hottest acts. It just feels like it makes a lot of sense. So yeah. After this, we would go to The Righteous, which was Dutch, Bateman, and Vincent, and a woman who I don't believe they ever said her name. So she was there versus Dalton Castle and the Boys, which is the Tate Twins, for the ROH Six-Man Championships, which is the Trios title for Ring of Honor. Which, again, I thought was surprising that this was a title that was brought back. I figured they were just going to retire these since, I feel like AEW is going to have their own Trios titles, so I figured they would just do that, but I guess not. I will admit the notes for this match are not great, as the Marvel Studios Hall H panel from San Diego Comic-Con was going on during this, so just bad timing. This will be a story for some of this show, as my mind was elsewhere with some of these announcements, but we'll get to that. Crowd was pretty dead for this, likely due to not many knowing who the Righteous were. I only knew Vincent coming into this match, and that was because I watched Impact, so I know him from Honor No More, and it is ironic that, this man is in Impact Wrestling in the Honor No More faction, which is a group that's angry about being fired or losing their jobs from Ring of Honor, and now he's in Ring of Honor again and is a champion. But and there was also just no story here or prior acknowledgement of this title until Friday when they announced this match, but it is what it is. The champions work over Brent Tate of the Tate Twins, just trying to kill him, basically, before getting a hot tag to Dalton Castle, who clears house and then drops Bateman with a basement DDT. Dalton calls for the Boys, and in a fantastic spot that really woke up the crowd, he just literally starts using them as projectiles, just launching them to the floor onto the champions repeatedly, which was, again, this was just a ton of fun here. The female of the Righteous gets up on the apron, and she gets the Boys distracted and hits a moonsault, but accidentally takes out Vincent and Bateman, and then Dutch, who is a big guy here, comes over the top rope for a huge reaction as they take out the Boys, and this gets a holy shit chant. Vincent nails Death from Above, and Castle gets in at the last second to break it up. This, basically, from the female of the Righteous's moonsault to Dutch's big move to Vincent hitting Death from Above, this is when the match actually got into good territory. Dutch got sent to the floor by Castle. Vincent lands the Orange Sunshine onto Brent and a suicide dive onto Castle, but Dalton comes back with a Hurricane Rana. Dutch then eats a boss man slam, and Castle plants Dutch with a German suplex. Bateman then gets caught with a bangarang, and Dalton Castle pins him as Dalton Castle and the Boys win and become the new Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions. That is a mouthful of a title. Yeah, this was probably the weakest match on the main show, from what I remember. Just looking at this now, yeah, 100% this was the weakest match on the show. The final couple minutes of this were very fun, but it took a lot to get the crowd into this. So, yeah, it is what it is. But putting the titles on Dalton and the Boys definitely, again, makes sense. I can't say I was too impressed with Bateman of the Righteous. I don't really remember anything he did. Vincent, I already don't care for too much from watching his Impact stuff. I thought Dutch, I don't know what it is about him, but Dutch stood out to me. If they're going to keep anyone around from the Righteous, I think Dutch would be the one. And then we have the woman, who I still don't know. But again, their whole shtick looks like they're some type of cult. Yeah. Interesting stuff. I'll be curious to see if the Righteous stick around here, or if this was just to get the titles off of them. Most likely the latter, but, who knows. After this, we would head into Daniel Garcia versus Wheeler Yuta for the ROH Pure Championship. Didn't really take too many notes for the first 10 minutes of this, again, because of the Marvel announcements, but at the 10-minute mark, neither man had used a rope break, and as I wrote down here, once again, bad notes, and you can thank Marvel Studios for that. At the 10-minute mark, though, both men are down in the ring as Mike Posey begins the count. Yuta and Garcia then get to their knees as they come to blows. They bring just strong strikes to each other with hard slaps across the face as they both work their way back to their feet, continually slapping one another until Garcia falls to the ground. And then Yuta tells the ref to count for a knockout. A German suplex from Yuta gets a 2 count as he goes to the hammer and anvil elbows that have been patented by the Blackpool Combat Club. Garcia rolls out of it and brings down his own before locking in a rear naked choke. We have a slap across the face and a Saito suplex from Garcia before Yuta drops him with the pain thriller and then locks in a crossface. Garcia gets out and locks in the sharpshooter dead center of the ring, and then cranks it back as Yuta counters this by grabbing at Garcia's neck, and he locks the crossface back in. This is just a great technical sequence. And then Garcia goes for his own variation of the Regal stretch, and Garcia breaks it on his own and then fires into Yuta's head with knee strikes, which allows Yuta to get his own version of the Walls of Jericho to get locked in as the crowd goes crazy for this. And we get the first rope break here from Garcia. A pile driver lands from Garcia and earns a 2 count as Regal continues to explain the techniques that he has taught Wheeler Yuta to get out of the pile drivers with how to maneuver your head and position yourself to take it less painfully, which I think really helps, make sense when you see Yuta kick out of pile drivers now, since during the match with the best friend, I think he kicked out of 2. So I know some people were critiquing it. Having Regal, of all people, explain, how there's a way to take it less painfully, I think does really well for it. The seatbelt clutch from Yuta comes in at the end, and Wheeler Yuta retains with 0 rope breaks. His commentary puts over how impressive it is that Wheeler Yuta managed to wrestle this match, such a hard-hitting match, without using a single rope break. Really solid stuff from these two, and I do think, I'll echo a lot of the same sentiments that most people do, that these two feel like genuine future stars that AEW has built up already. Yuta is massively over anytime he's on TV. And Daniel Garcia always gets really good matches out of anyone he's paired with. So I think and he's shown character. As part of the JAS, and I think that's what he was missing prior to joining the group. So overall, I think both guys are on the up and up in their career. And I am very excited to see where both men go in the future. After this, we would have our one non-title match on the main show, which was Roosh versus Dragon Lee in the brother versus brother match. And the first big thing in this match is Roosh is put onto a table at ringside, and Dragon Lee hits like a Darby Allin-esque suicide dive, just sprinting out of the ring and diving like head first through Roosh and this table in an insane moment. It's just a line drive. Crowd goes wild. I don't even know what else to say. This was just insanity. Roosh gets sent back into the ring with Dragon Lee coming down with the double stomp off the top rope for a 2 count. An Ushigoroshi lands from Lee as well as a PK, but Roosh just sits up and asks for more. Roosh grabs the throat, but Dragon Lee comes back and fires off with elbow strikes to the face, as Roosh then does the same with a big strike exchange kicking off here. Roosh comes back with a strike across the chest, and Lee spits on his hand and does the same. The two men just fire off strikes to each other's chests as Roosh lands a spinning fist, and both hit ripcord German suplexes off the ropes as both men go down. Out onto the apron, a big super kick from Roosh and a running knee from Dragon Lee. Roosh just flings Dragon Lee off the apron and down onto the floor with a nuts suplex, and then a Frankensteiner from Dragon Lee on the outside, and both men get back into the ring at 19. This was insane. This match didn't have any build whatsoever, but these two, they came out here with a purpose, and rightfully so. Roosh sends Dragon Lee into the bottom turnbuckle with a suplex, and then he lands the bull's horns, but Dragon Lee kicks out, which commentary suggests is the first time ever that somebody's kicked out of it. I don't know if that's true. Roosh gets Lee onto the top rope, but Lee does the double stomp with Roosh hung up on the ropes, and Roosh kicks out at 1. The Dragon Bomb lands for a 2.9 count. The Incineration knee connects for another 2.9, and Roosh appears to be out, but then I have, but Roosh kicks yeah, but again Roosh kicks out at 1. I think I had a typo here. But we have a super kick and a running elbow strike, and then the bull's horns lands for a second time, and Roosh wins. This was bonkers from top to bottom. These two just had such a fired up, intense match here. Really good stuff, and this would set up an announcement later in the show for Fight for the Fallen that we will get to once again when we get to that. Mercedes Martinez versus Serena Deeb for the ROH Women's World Championship, and this would come as the final match where the Marvel Studios Comic-Con panel would interrupt my note-taking as Marvel decided to drop a very emotional trailer for Black Panther 2: Wakanda Forever. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. It looks fantastic. I'm very excited for this movie. And then we were also at this time getting announcements for the different phases with, the announcements for Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. So as a nerd, I was taking my time to multitask here, but Serena, I thought, looked great in this match. Great as always. Her technical prowess was on full display here. We got her climbing up on Mercedes Martinez's back for a submission, and she gets out as the two goes for covers, but each other they keep getting out of each other's roll-up attempts. Deeb goes for the Deeb tox, but Martinez powers out, and Martinez rolls through and just kills Deeb with a running knee as both go down. The women go up top, and we get a spider German suplex that drops Deeb on her neck, and it looks fucking brutal. It looked like Deeb could have just gotten, horribly injured here. But it appeared she was perfectly fine, and this, would play into the rest of the match, so it looked like this was planned, which is insane to me. But Martinez lifts up Deeb and starts clubbing her across the chest, and she goes for the execution forearm, but Deeb just falls flat on her face, but she is, and then we have the surfboard stretch gets locked in, very briefly, but Deeb blocks it and begins to bite the arm to break it, as it looks like she was playing possum to just lure in Mercedes to lock this in so she could go after the arm. Down on their knees, Martinez chops Deeb across the chest, but Deeb drops her with a swinging neck breaker out of nowhere. A tornado DDT lands from Deeb, and then she gets the Serenity lock in right in the center of the ring, but Martinez gets out and rolls her up for 2. Deeb goes after the leg and hits a dragon screw before slamming Mercedes' knee down on the mat rapidly. The ankle lock gets looked for, but Martinez uses her leg strength to fling Deeb face first into the turnbuckle. We have a cheeky Nando's variant from Martinez, and the OG drop from Martinez gets a near fall for the champ. The Brass City Sleeper gets locked in from Martinez in the center of the ring, and Deeb hangs on briefly, but she cannot resist. Mercedes Martinez retains, and these two share a moment, just embracing after the match here. I thought this was really solid, to be honest. I really enjoy watching Serena Deeb wrestle. Mercedes Martinez is more hit or miss for me, but I thought these two worked really well together overall. And I enjoyed this thoroughly, I would say, for the most part. Yeah, I thought a really solid ROH Women's World Championship match. I'm actually surprised. I personally thought Serena Deeb was going to take this. My guess was that Deeb was going to win this, and then they'd go back to Deeb versus Hikaru Shida for the ROH title, but that does not appear to be the case, obviously, since Mercedes retained. So yeah, but I thought solid match, and I'm excited, I guess, to see where Mercedes goes from here. I don't know who they're going to have her face. She already faced Willow. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. After this, we would have Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal for the ROH TV Championship. Jay Lethal makes his entrance first, and he sends Satnam Singh and Sanjay Dutt to the back, saying he's going to do this himself. And as he's coming down the ring, Samoa Joe makes his entrance and just takes out Jay Lethal, brutalizes him here with obviously Joe looking for revenge on Lethal for injuring his arm in storyline. Big headbutts against the barricade, with Lethal firing off a drop kick. We have some strong ass chops from Joe, which drops Lethal on the floor. Lethal tries a lariat, but Joe eats it and just drops him with one of his own. And then Lethal tries to block him from being sent into the ring, trying to delay the match from starting, as this would be the story here. Lethal tries to use the title as a weapon, but Joe blocks it, and the two continue a ringside brawl. Joe sends Lethal into the ring, and Jay kicks his legs out on the apron as Joe's climbing in to, again, prevent this match from actually starting. And he goes for the trio of suicide dives that he has, and he nails all three before the bell has rung here. Lethal sits Joe onto a chair at ringside and goes for something, but Joe fires up with a chop, and then a kick to seat him down, and then comes in with the boot wash as Lethal's seated in the chair against the barricade. Satnam runs out, and they attack Joe's arm once more, locking a chair around his shoulder and sending him into the ring post, finally sending Joe into the ring as Lethal steps inside as well. Jay calls for the match to start, and Satnam gets ejected. He throws a good fit here, taking off his jacket and throwing it on the floor, very similar to Ric Flair. It's pretty entertaining. And as Satnam gets ejected, the match does get underway. A big drop kick from Lethal lands on Joe for a 2 count. We have a chop exchange in the ring with Joe getting the best, though Lethal comes back with another drop kick to drop Joe. Samoa Joe then takes down Lethal and comes back with his own suicide dive through the ropes. Joe scores a 2 count with a nice pinning combo, and then levels Lethal with a stiff lariat for another 2 count. We have a step-up enziguri landing for Lethal, but he runs into a power slam from Joe, and a diving leg lariat from Joe scores another 2 count. The muscle buster gets looked for, but Lethal escapes and nails a lethal injection for 2. Sanjay Dutt runs out for the distraction, and we have a belt shot from Lethal, and it only gets a 2.9 as the crowd comes to life. And Sanjay Dutt his reaction to Joe kicking out of this belt shot was absolutely phenomenal. This man, I don't even know how he did it, but he, flipped up onto the ring and was just on his back in just, sheer surprise. We have the crowd went wild for all of this. The crowd was super into this from the I'll talk about it at the end, but they did a really good job here, I will say that. Lethal injection gets looked for a second time, but Joe catches Lethal in the clutch. Lethal counters with a jawbreaker, but Joe has managed to keep the coquina clutch locked in, and Samoa Joe retains the ROH TV Championship. I love Jay Lethal, but this definitely felt like Joe needed to win this. He's been off TV for a while, and that's not Tony Khan's fault or anything. Joe had prior commitments for filming a TV show. It's just a matter of they had to make do with what it was. But this was a very strong defense for Joe, I thought. I think they did a really good job faking everybody out with this opening here, with the whole brawl at ringside, and it went long enough that it felt like after they attacked Joe's arm that they could call this match off, and the reasoning would be like, we at least gave you this really strong brawl. But no, instead we got a full match here. And I think that the pre-match beatdown really got the heat on Joe. Lethal got strong heat and whatnot, but it was for attacking Samoa Joe, obviously. I thought this was a really fun match. I thought these two worked great together. I think it really showed how big of a star Samoa Joe can be, and how just great he is, and that he was kind of wasted in his WWE run. So yeah, I love this. I think they really knocked this one out of the park. I'm excited to see more of Samoa Joe in AEW and Ring of Honor. And I hope Jay Lethal doesn't just, fall off from this. I think his trio of himself, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh have gotten very entertaining. Their chemistry feels really strong together. I think Jay Lethal has put in some amazing work with some great matches. And I just want to see more of all of them together, whatever that may be. After this match, we would have our announcements for Fight for the Fallen, where we would get the crowd, or not the crowd, the card announced, I should say. And so it would be Jon Moxley versus Roosh for the interim AEW World Championship, following Roosh's win over Dragon Lee. Commentary would say that this is because Roosh is 10-0 in his last singles matches, although that seems to be up for debate. Ricky Starks versus Danhausen for the FTW Championship. Bryan Danielson makes his return after being out with injury since Double or Nothing in a singles match against Daniel Garcia. Tony Nese and Mark Sterling versus Swerve Strickland in a handicap match. And Thunder Rosa versus Miyu Yamashita for the AEW Women's Championship. We would also later have Dante Martin versus Sammy Guevara announced for this show, and we will also have a promo from Jungle Boy. And then we would have announced for Rampage next week, or, well, now it's this week, but it's Ethan Page versus Leon Ruffin and Lee Moriarty versus Matt Seidel as our 2 matches announced so far. So, Rampage does not really look must-watch. I will say, it's nice to see Ethan Page getting a singles win on TV. I'm assuming he's going to be heated up for something, either a future match with maybe Pac for the All-Atlantic Championship or the TNT Championship against Wardlow. And Lee Moriarty versus Matt Seidel should be a good match, but that show desperately needs something bigger to draw people in. So we'll see. That sends us to the main event, the true main event of this show, which is FTR versus the Briscoes 2 for the ROH World Tag Team Championship, 2 out of 3 falls match. The Briscoes got the first fall in this, pinning Dax Hardwood with the Doomsday Device. Not going over everything before that just because this match would go very long, and I didn't, just not worth it. But they pinned Dax Hardwood with the Doomsday Device. Crowd comes to life during the recovery period here with chance for both teams as Dax looks for a quick roll-up, but only a 2 count. Mark goes to town at ringside, unleashing hard chops to the chest of Dax against the ring post before sending him back into the ring. And Dax goes back to the outside, and Jay sends him into the barricade, and Dax is bleeding from the chops that Mark gave him. We have the 20-minute call come out as Dax is still being worked over by the Briscoes, completely cut off from Cash. Back in the ring, Dax finally gets some offense in, getting Jay up onto the top turnbuckle, but Cash has been taken off the apron, so he can't get the tag. A big super back suplex lands from Dax Hardwood as both he and Jay go down in the center of the ring. The redneck boogie lands from the Briscoes, but only a 2 count on Dax. Brainbuster lands from Cash, but only a 2 count. The gory special, and it gets another 2 count from Cash after he tags in. And then Jay sends Dax into the front row with the 2 breaking out strikes as they head into the audience. Cash lands a big crossbody off the top rope for another 2 count, and Jay nails him with a ring bell as the ref is distracted, but only a 2 count as Cash Wheeler prevents the sweep. This was a great fake out, genuinely. Jay tags in as Cash is busted open from the ring bell attack. The froggy elbow from Mark lands, but Dax breaks it up at the last second and pulls Jay out to the ringside area. Dax flapjacks Mark onto the steel steps to incapacitate him. Dax then gets tagged in, and the big rig lands for a huge pop. And FTR gets the second fall. It's now 1-1 as the match passes the 30-minute mark. A pile driver lands from Dax for a 2 count, and we have a ref bump as Paul Turner gets sent down to the floor. Mark Briscoe pulls Cash out and sends him into the barricade. The J Driller lands, but no ref as we get a very visual pin on Dax here that does not get counted. Jay prevents Cash from getting back in as he boots him off the apron, and they set up for the Doomsday Device again. Dax is shouting for Cash to come to life, and he does, who prevents Mark from hitting the move. The big rig gets hit, but the ref still isn't there. Cash sends him in, but Jay is noted to be the first person to kick out of the big rig, thanks to the ref obviously being incapacitated for some time. The Doomsday Device does land, but Cash gets in at 2.9, and the entire arena is on their feet. Cash and Dax just unload on each other with punches here before turning to chops. A suplex against the ropes goes poorly for Cash and Mark, but they sold it well and rolled out. 40 minutes gets called as Dax and Jay stand off, coming to fist all over. Just a boxing match here. Dax eventually drops Jay, and we get some covers for 2 counts. A submission from Jay Briscoe against the ropes as Mark and Cash get him with FTR both locked in as they hold hands to prevent each other from tapping. A nice callback to some of their NXT matches. Cash Wheeler comes in, or after he's in, but after they get out of the holds, Cash Wheeler hits a crazy back suplex off the apron through a table at ringside to himself and Mark Briscoe, taking them out. The J Driller lands again, and Dax kicks out at like 2.999. This was insane. The J Driller gets looked for again, but Dax gets out and lifts Jay to the top rope, unloading with chops across the chest before climbing to join him, and we have a spike pile driver off the top rope. Dax just falls on top of Jay, and FTR retain in an absolutely fucking insane main event for the ROH World Tag Team Championship. My God, I am so happy that they got the Briscoes back. It was looking kind of not great there after Supercard of Honor when FTR won. Again, love FTR. Very happy that they won these belts and they're having the run of their life right now. Their first match with the Briscoes was my match of the year up until now. This probably takes the cake. And it was such a shame that, it would have really helped Impact because it did appear that the Briscoes were going to go to Impact. They were tag team champs there briefly. But yeah, we now know that the Briscoes have signed long-term deals with Ring of Honor, and we should expect to see more of them, which is great news because they're fucking fantastic. After the match, we had just a great promo from FTR here, talking about the match, saying that they respect the Briscoes, and talking about their career, and the team to come out and confront them, no physical altercation, just a stare down, would be Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, led by William Regal. So it does appear that the next people to challenge for the ROH World Tag Team titles will possibly be some variation of the Blackpool Combat Club. Keep in mind, the only person in the group to not have gold is Bryan Danielson. So it does seem like that could be a story, that Danielson is going to be looking for a title to capture, whether it's in AEW or Ring of Honor. Or theoretically New Japan. There's a number of different titles that this man could go for to try and get some more gold for easily the most over faction in wrestling and probably the most stacked in terms of talent. All in all, I thought this was an absolutely phenomenal show from Ring of Honor. I think this was a step up from Supercard of Honor, which was already a very solid show. Again, they went 3 for 4 with their 4 matches on the pre-show. The only one that really didn't matter was the Shinobi Shadow Squad versus the Trust Brothers. And everything on the main show, aside from the 6-man titles, was like anywhere from good to great. And even the final couple minutes of the 6-man match was pretty solid. So this did not feel like a waste of money for those who bought the pay-per-view, including myself. This felt just like a very fun show to watch with some just all-around great wrestling. If you haven't seen the show, I would recommend check. If you only have time to watch a couple matches, I would say watch FTR versus the Briscoes, watch Daniel Garcia versus Wheeler Yuta, watch Joe versus Lethal, and if you have time, watch Mercedes versus Serena Deeb. Those are your must-watch matches from the show. But yeah, all in all, I'd give the show a thumbs up. I thought this was really good, and it has me excited for the future of Ring of Honor. I hope that they can get a TV deal. I know I would watch. I already watch a lot of wrestling, but I would find a way. And whenever the next pay-per-view is, I'll be tuning in, because I thought they knocked it out of the park with this one. So we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for this review, though, so thank you for joining me for this almost 50-minute podcast. I mean, with the intro added on, it should probably land at around 50 minutes. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Be sure to leave a like, comment your favorite matches from the show, your overall thoughts on Ring of Honor, how you're vibing with the product, if you're excited for more, if you're not excited for more, whatever it may be. Feel free to comment it down below. Leave a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe and follow us over on Twitter at Deep Six Wrestling. Until the next time, I've been Pat. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.